The shift to remote and hybrid work over the past 2 years has accelerated application development on cloud infrastructure. However, securing these new assets has lagged behind. Qualys CloudView, the next generation of cloud security posture management, delivers an end-to-end multi-cloud security and compliance solution encompassing the entire application lifecycle from build to runtime. CloudView enables enterprises to assess their cloud security and compliance posture, identify risks and gaps, auto-remediate issues, proactively enforce best practices, and prove compliance in audits rapidly and efficiently. Identify your most vulnerable cloud assets by visiting securityweekly.com/Qualys. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. And now for part one of the Enterprise Security Weekly news. Check out securityweekly.com/ESW303 if you want to follow along as we go through the news or for links to the articles that we're covering. All right, and see what we've got here. Only a few fundings this week, but a few odd ones. So we have two cases where cybersecurity companies that were originally better known maybe back in like 2015 timeframe. At least that's when I heard a lot of hype about both Spider Oak and Hypori. Spider Oak actually goes back quite a bit further than that. Spider Oak was, I think they actually beat Dropbox to market in the enterprise file sync and share market when we started seeing, this would have been before OneDrive, before Google Drive existed. I think Box was one of the first ones to market. And these guys were very early with a file sync share backup style solution. And they were always the more secure option, focused a lot more on end-to-end security and things like that than other folks here. You as the customer, you could own the encryption keys to your data, so that Spider Oak couldn't actually view your data, which was fairly unique back then. And they've kind of pivoted to this outer space. Like when I say space here, I mean like leaving Earth's orbit. It's one of the strangest product pitches I've seen, or product pivots that I've seen. Any thoughts here, Tyler?
Yeah,
I hear you giggling.
No, I'm giggling, man, because we always hear of cyberspace, like, oh, we pivoted into this, or that in cyberspace. Not we pivoted this to space, like literally space, outer space. Introducing Orbit Secure. That's the name of their product, Orbit Secure. Keep everything on a need-to-know basis in Orbit Secure, designed for hybrid and multi-party mission environments, embedding security into your commands and data. I have no idea where this thing is going.
Beyond cloud, it's Orbit.
I love it. That's a great tagline. Blasting beyond cloud.
Oh, the best is if you go to their website, there's actually a screenshot of one of their talking heads. I can't see who it is, but one of their talking heads on Fox News.
See, everyone else is at the cloud level. We're at the space level. We're up here. They're down here at 10. We're up here at 11.
Cyber threats pose a danger to U.S. ability to wage war is the topic. Woo! Investing in space, digital orbit danger.
So we're going to have some data centers in space, I guess.
Cyber in space.
Orbit Secure. I love it.
Yeah, they have a senior VP of space, a space advisory board. Like they've really pivoted into it. And it's interesting.
Wow.
I guess, like, how big of a niche do you need to survive as a security company, right? Like, guys, it looks like we're not going to make it. Find us a niche to pivot into.
That said, Trimark is spinning up a space division tomorrow.
Can I be the CEO?
I guess space has got to be big enough for at least, a handful of security companies to specialize in, right?
Bro, space is infinite.
And it's
Not as a market.
literally a growing market. It just gets bigger every year.
It's literally an infinite market, man. Come on.
As the universe expands. Wow.
Exactly. And once we identify
certainly
the
it's
other
got to be a
people out
growing
there,
market.
aliens, the market will grow even more. There's other inhabited planets. They need cybersecurity too, probably.
I mean, think about it. At any given moment, there's what, like 8 people in space? That's bound to grow.
Yeah.
Oh man. Does your TAM only include Earthlings? Only include humans? Wow. The next one is a little bit less ambitious. So this is more of like a marketing pivot. So Hypori makes what they used to call virtualized mobile or virtual mobile infrastructure. The idea is that you have a disposable, secure virtual Android instance running in the cloud somewhere that you use on your phone instead of using the actual mobile OS that's on your phone. So I guess I can see some of the advantages here. That maybe you have data that's very sensitive, corporate data that you don't want to be on somebody's personal BYOD device. So you only give them access to it through this virtual Android instance that's running in AWS or some cloud somewhere, right? And so they've kind of, the pivot here is they're now pitching it as zero trust BYOD.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. It sounds like an extension of what Citrix has been doing for a while, where you basically have a terminal window into an environment. Or even, I guess the technology is more akin to what is being done. Tyler, earlier you mentioned gamifying. So effectively, it sounds like they're gamifying workloads because the Nintendo Switch, for example, is able to run certain games that are not exactly made for the Nintendo Switch because it has a lower power processor than, say, an Xbox or a PlayStation. But now those level games can be played on a Nintendo because the game itself is actually rendered and runs in a cloud environment, cloud workload, but then just streamed and shown on the Switch. So it sounds very similar to that sort of situation. It's very interesting. I'd be curious about
cloud gaming
what the cloud
has been around since the mid 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting conceptually, but as an investor, I look at this and go, the mobile security market never amounted to much when I was looking at it 10 years ago. I don't see it being anything today. And who really is going to want to run a separate work component on their device? I remember running 10 years ago on early Android devices where you had to switch from like work mode to personal mode or whatever. And I think you still have to do that on some Android, but it's built into the operating system. Why would I even mess with anything like this? It just doesn't seem like a logical, at least from an investment standpoint, a logical investment to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Lookout is the only mobile security company that really made it big, and I think hit unicorn status and made it out of that.
Yeah, goodness knows why. I mean, I don't remember their numbers back in the day. I was pretty close with their founders early on, or at least one of their founders. I still am a little bit, still friends with them. But I don't know. I don't remember what their metrics and growth rate were and things like that. But they hit a $1 billion valuation when $1 billion valuation actually meant something. So I'm assuming it was a reasonable level of adoption.
Yeah, I think they were. So I mean, there aren't many security companies anymore that do both enterprise and consumer, but Lookout definitely did both. So I think that might have helped them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and both of these fundings, both of these are companies who had started, the VC funding process, and then later on restarted it. So I think both Spider Oak and Hypori have both had multiple Series A's, multiple Series B's now, as they kind of, I guess they cleared the cap table, restarted the whole process. I'm not sure exactly how that works.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't touch that. I wouldn't touch a mobile sec play right now with a 10-foot pole.
All right. Let's see. The copy of the stories I'm looking at jumps from number 2 to number 8. And I know we've got some acquisitions here. So Tom O'Bravo picked up Magnet Forensics, which I'm not terribly familiar with, but they were worth $1.34 billion. So they're a big deal to somebody.
Yeah, wow. It's crazy how there can be a $1 billion plus valuation, almost $2 billion plus valuation cybersecurity company that I'm not intimately familiar with. It seems very bizarre, but it is Canadian, right? European or not European? Canadians in Europe, where I come from. It's a Canadian company worth 1.8 billion Canadian, so a 1.3 billion dollar deal. I think if I recall correctly, they're doing cybersecurity threat investigation kind of stuff, digital forensics.
Oh, okay.
Which
Man,
is,
I can claim COVID brain. What's your excuse, Tyler?
I don't have an excuse. I'm just dumb. That's pretty straightforward. But no, I think it's similar in play to some of the digital forensics firms, consulting style firms that are getting large valuations in the U.S. now too, potentially like an Arctic Wolf or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a big deal. Interesting to see the PE companies are still very active. I don't think we've seen them slow down at all. And in this market, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more. It's not often we have more acquisition stories than funding stories, but this week is one of those weeks. So
welcome to the compression of 2023, Adrian. Now is the time to buy distressed assets that can't raise money again.
Yep. Vanta picked up a company called TrustPage. I don't know a whole lot about TrustPage, but Vanta, I believe, does. They help you accelerate and automate part of your SOC 2 and other compliance and regulatory initiatives. So
Vanta is a compliance play for sure. I can't. We're running off of a bit of an austerity system here, and I'm having trouble finding the link to that one. But Vanta is most definitely a automated compliance play where they collect all of the asset information around compliance required to get SOC 2, to get HIPAA, to get PCI, insert your framework here, and then automate exposure of your gaps with regards to getting the certifications. And then when your auditors can come in, they can say, oh, you have Vanta? Oh, here's the link too. You've got Vanta. We know that you can get with Vanta. We trust the results of that data. Now we know where your gaps are, and we can quickly get you to your compliance levels faster. So, pretty strong solution.
It looks like TrustPage is very similar. It looks kind of like I'm trying to remember the name of the company. There's a bunch of companies out there that will automate your SIGs and your RFPs. Maybe kind of like a CyberGRX. It looks like they aim to help you automate and manage your security reviews and your questionnaires. So that's an obvious plug-in for Vanta to have there.
Yeah.
Bitwarden extends passwordless leadership with their acquisition of, what was the name of the company? Passwordless.dev is the name of the company. So it sounds like a development framework for building in different MFA, FIDO2, WebAuthn, hardware keys, YubiKeys, that kind of thing, Windows ID. Hello, Face ID into your products.
Yeah. No, I've been a big fan of these kinds of technologies, like especially if they're open source, finding ways to get rid of the damn password. First and forever. If we can get rid of passwords permanently and move to more biometric now, especially now that we all have handheld devices. We've had this conversation 100 times on the show. Now that we've got these devices, we 100% should be using those as authentication components. Everybody keeps them sitting on their desk 24/7. So I like these kinds of technologies. These are exciting technologies. And as soon as we can get to a world where I don't have to enter another password, the happier I'm going to be.
Agreed. FIDO2 is a much stronger authentication method than even password plus MFA. So it's definitely the right way to go.
All right, there's a couple of rounds of layoffs here. We're not going to, it's kind of depressing, so we're not going to cover those.
Just a couple, Adrian? Just a couple?
Yeah, well, in security, just a couple. Once you broaden it to tech, it's massive, right? Like we've heard about, half the people I know have been laid off, I feel like.
Yeah. This is not just a couple. I think it's worth discussing actually as kind of a touch point, not necessarily to dwell on the doom and gloom of the layoffs, that are occurring. But I'm a member of a wonderful society, which I will plug here, called the Cybersecurity Marketers Society, which is a fantastic Slack group. And in that Slack group is a kind of a job board posting and a couple of spots where people can post looking for jobs wanted kinds of roles. And it feels like literally every other day it's another cybersecurity layoff. This is not a 1-2 punch in cybersecurity. This is a massive body blow. We're seeing significant number of employees laid off. There's if you are a reader of Clint Gibler's TLDR Sec, the one that came out I think today or yesterday, just came out within the last 24 hours. He's got a link in the top there to a cybersecurity jobs board and layoff tracker kind of thing. Definitely recommend you take a peek at that. It is pretty big. So if you're out there and you're a listener and you are looking for a job because you've been affected and laid off, look at that list. It's a great place to start. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and DM. I'm happy to make introductions where I can as well. But it's a real problem we're seeing in cyber right now.
Yeah, and also Mike Prevette, who runs Return on Security and has the security funded newsletter, actually just started a separate jobs newsletter as well. So that's another one you can sign up for. But yeah, here in the list this week, I had Citrix and HashiCorp and Forescout are all either security companies or partially security companies who have done some rounds of layoffs.
You know what I do find interesting about those names? Not Citrix and Hashi so much, but the Forescout one says that they fired 60% of their Israeli R&D staff. That to me is shocking, because usually the Israeli R&D stuff is a significant kind of high growth scenario over there. And I'm wondering if we're going to see increased impact in Israel, given the investment, overinflated investment really that has gone into Israel in the last 3 to 4 years. I wonder if there'll be an Israeli reckoning coming down second half of this year on the back of the impacts to like what really is a global cybersecurity market.
Yeah, and that's it for my layoff stories this week, though. Sure, we're going to still keep seeing some of that fallout. When do you think, Tyler, we'll stop seeing layoffs there? I think we saw 5,000. According to my database, at least 5,000 layoffs last year, and we're already probably a good 1,000 into this year.
Oh, I think that's underestimating for sure. I can get out the crystal ball, Adrian, and polish it up and tell you exactly when it's going to happen. But pretty much the only thing you're guaranteed if I do that is that I'm going to be wrong. I think the general idea is the market's down. The market's going to remain down. And until the Fed, I've said this before, and I know this isn't a macroeconomic podcast, but until the Fed finally gives up on pushing the nominal interest rates through the roof, we're going to see continued pressure on high tech, high growth, high risk investments like everything in tech, but specifically cybersecurity is no different. Now, a lot of investors out there say cybersecurity is resilient; they can make it through, and yeah, they're going to do better than like high tech, high growth food ordering companies, right? Which are going to collapse faster. Right. But it's still not immune to the compression of the change in interest rates. I teach a class at the University of North Carolina MBA school, and I had a class last night, and I said specifically, what is the one thing that has allowed blitz scaling companies in the last 3 to 4 years to flourish and scale and become massive? And really what it is free resources, infinite resources. And when you have infinite resources, you can scale as fast as you want because there's no downside. You can always go back to the well for more. Well, the resources have dried up. You can't go back to the well anymore. And now you better damn well make your business an efficient business.
So this seems like a good point to jump to story number 10. Why to start up a startup in a bad economy by Paul Graham. I thought this was good timing to resurface this. So this essay is actually from 2008.
Wow. I'm going to deep dive this this post. I remember seeing it because I remember thinking how it was so poorly formatted back when I saw it originally. But even now looking at it, I want to deep dive this because I think at the end of the day, what is the saying? Diamonds are forged under pressure, right? And I think we're in another one of those scenarios. I'm reading it again. Chamath Palihapitiya from All In Podcast actually just wrote a post yesterday on why now is going to be the next generation of brand new, amazing Google level startups, right? Your big monster style startups to come out. They're going to be born today and tomorrow, right? In the very near future. And the reality is because you have to build in a resource constrained world. And when you're building in a resource constrained world, it's harder to do. And if you can be successful in that environment, when the resources become cheaper or potentially infinite, like they were for the last 8 or so years, you can shoot through the moon. You can go right up, and tackle just about anything. So, that's
And
kind of the TLDR
also,
scenario.
also, how much talent has just been freed up by the companies most
Absolutely.
likely to suck up all the talent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Talent just 100%, a huge amount of talent is now 100% available and ready to work at decreased prices with, instead of employee friendly work modes where, if you don't have the latest and greatest coffee, I'm not going to come work for you. We're now in a situation where the employer holds all control. And so they can get great workers at relatively reasonable rates. And this is where new leaders are born. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, AI backed systems becomes the new frontier.
yeah, I mean, there's got to be a ton of companies, I imagine, created by just the layoffs that Meta, Google, and Microsoft have done. These are really smart people who've been working together for a long time. They were let go at the same time. A lot of them are going to be thinking, "Hey, now's a good time to start something new."
And a lot of them, not all of them, but a portion of them, I don't know, let's 5%, 10%, have a nest egg, right? These are folks that have lived out in Silicon Valley making $1 million a year, some of these engineers, right? And just banking it,
Yeah.
setting it aside. And now they're sitting on significant money going, okay, now I got the bank to bankroll myself to build something new.
Yep. Yep. Ironically, the next story on the list is why there are so many cybersecurity vendors. It's an essay by Ross Halaluk, I think is how you say his name. That could be wrong. I'm sorry, Ross, if I said it wrong. But why there are so many vendors, what it leads to, and where we go from here. So, while I think we're going to see some acquisitions, certainly as everybody agrees on valuations, which is story number 13, talking about the reality check of, hey, your value, you're not a unicorn anymore. Once we see everybody come to terms with that, we might see the market shrink a little, but it's going to grow right again. Just like what we're talking about. I think we're going to see a bunch of new companies born out of these layoffs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read this article in detail. Ross is a hell of an author. He's a great journalist. He's doing a lot of really cool stuff. So if you haven't subscribed to Venture and Security, definitely go subscribe to it. This particular article is very interesting. I agree with about 80% of it, but the key thing I agree with is that companies in cyber don't fail at the same rate as other industries. As an investor, it's one of the reasons why I put money into cyber. One, I know cyber. It's been my whole career for 25 years, so I try to focus on investing in cyber. But two, I agree with them. I don't think they fail. I don't think they go to zero nearly as much as other industries. There's always somebody ready to pick up a smart piece of IP at a break-even cost to the invested capital. So if you give somebody, a grand total of $10 million, they're not able to turn it into a product that can be bought. But hey, that might be a component that plugs into a larger platform or something like that. $10 million is a nothing acquisition for these large cyber companies, or, it just makes sense that they just don't fail at the same rate as your next scooter riding company, right? So those just go to zero with a much higher frequency rate. So because of that, everybody who has a modicum of some kind of unique technology idea turns it into a company because they know there's a smaller percent of it going to zero. The investors are ready to put money behind it and say, hey, worst case scenario, we break even on this thing in a few years if we can't get it to market.
Yep. Very true. Let's see. So China's trying to build an infosec industry, and I think it's interesting. That they're just going to announce I guess that's what China does. They announce they're going to build something and then they build it.
I guess. I mean, different regime, different style.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with the government behind it, it's highly likely to happen. Already, the cybersecurity market in China has grown quite a bit. I don't know how big it is now in relation to other things, but also Korea, Japan. We've seen more and more cybersecurity companies coming out of Asia in general.
Yeah, again, it comes down to resources, right? It's like playing Sims, or playing the old game like Civ, right? Civilization. If you have infinite resources, you can build whatever the hell you want. If the Chinese government's willing to give a bunch of infinite resource scenario to a bunch of intelligent cyber researchers and people to build companies, off they go. They're going to go be successful. Those companies will be born. Will they be efficient? Will they return a lot of capital? That's TBD. But the technology will be built.
Yeah. All right, let's see what else we've got here. So I've been very, very interested to follow Basecamp 37 Signals here. They've been making a big deal about stepping out of the cloud and just running they're not running their own data centers. They're using colo facility. But basically their argument is if you don't have crazy unpredictable growth, you don't necessarily need cloud scale, and cloud is actually a lot more expensive than just running your own hardware. And I'm very interested to see this experiment play out. They're being very open with their spending, and in fact, the item that we have linked in the news here has specific dollar amounts, how much they spend on cloud, and they break it down by the different services, relational databases, OpenSearch, EC2 ELB, CloudWatch. They break down all the costs for you, and they say in a year, once they've moved Hey, which is their email service, out of the cloud and onto their own systems, they're going to share what kind of savings they get from doing that.
And you asked me for a crystal ball prediction, Adrian, what's your crystal ball on this one?
My crystal ball on this one is that so they've never been fully cloud. I don't think so. Hey has been cloud from the beginning because they didn't know how it was going to go, and they didn't want to pull a Dollar Shave Club and get massive response to a new service and not be able to serve it. I if you remember when Dollar Shave Club launched, they put together a video specifically to go viral. It did go viral, and the next joke that came up is that Dollar Shave Club was using dollar hosting services because nobody could sign up for the product. and it was definitely a lesson for them and for anybody watching. And when same thing happened with Hey, they got way more response. I think they signed up like 1 million people or just something crazy in the first month, way more than they were anticipating. So it was good for them to be in the cloud then. But Basecamp, their other product, their product management product, has never been fully in the cloud. So they never lost that skill set. So my crystal ball here is yeah, they're going to save a bunch of money doing this, but they might be, better positioned to do that than most other companies. If somebody's just 100% born in the cloud, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for them to attempt something like this.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the right skill set.
I think this is pretty interesting, and certainly I've heard of some companies that have gone to the cloud and pulled back again. There are scenarios where the savings just aren't there in cloud. And so when you're looking at cloud services and figuring that out, if you're just using straight infrastructure, effectively instances like you would have on-prem in VMware or Hyper-V or something else, the on-prem or even a colo or rack type situation may be more favorable than cloud. Cloud definitely can be more expensive depending on your scenario and what you need from a processor and storage perspective. So it definitely is not always cheaper, and that's why it is important to run the numbers and figuring it out. Certainly there are a lot of companies where the executive said, let's go to the cloud. Everyone's going to the cloud. We got to do it also. and without doing that ROI on it and that analysis to really understand where our expenses are going. And it sounds like Basecamp did that. So kudos to them for really drilling into the numbers and figuring out what makes the most sense for them, especially with the current economy and where things are. Makes a lot of sense to do it now.
Yeah, I love when people do experiments in the public space here. So it's I'm going to be really interested to see that, and we will revisit that in a year when they publish the numbers from this experiment. All right, I think I'm going to jump to our squirrel story here, where
That's a good one.
Microsoft has made these enormous investments in open AI, and people weren't, I think people kind of scratching their head at it, saying, okay, it's a weird place to put $10 billion. Now they're not scratching their head as much. Now Microsoft is putting it into Office apps. They're putting it into Edge, into Bing. All of a sudden, Microsoft is looking like a genius now that ChatGPT 3 is out, and people are finding all kinds of commercial and profitable uses for it. It's so the squirrel story here is Google. Let me just read the headline. The headline's funny. Panicked Google to unveil over 20 AI products, including a pixel wallpaper maker. So,
Ooh.
of course, Google's been pouring money into AI also. It's not just been Microsoft, but they haven't really. Google doesn't seem to have a great product strategy, right? Like they do Google Stadia, which is a cloud gaming effort. They even had their own first party studio. They didn't pump enough money into it for it to be successful. So, people have been predicting from day one it was going to close down, and they shut it down. And Google's got all this AI stuff, just sitting around, all this research that they've done, and everybody's seen them playing with some of this stuff. Everything from Google Glass to self-driving cars, and I don't know, they just haven't done anything really interesting, all that interesting with it yet. Aside from maybe the Google Voice Assistant is a good example of their AI technology that a lot of people have in their hands that works really well. But yeah, all this stuff with Microsoft's investments in ChatGPT has them suddenly scrambling and trying to make their own AI investments relevant overnight.
Yeah,
absolutely. It makes sense. Go ahead, Tyler.
I was gonna say the whole Chat GPT thing has him freaked out, man. Has Sundar freaked out? He doesn't know how to handle it. And the funny thing is, if you actually read the article, it's 20 AI products coming over the course of the next year. So it's not like they've had these in the bag and they got freaked out. Like, oh, we better get them out to market faster. Like, these are coming next year. They could be kicking off these projects now, for all we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a response. The article says that the Chat GPT system and others like it certainly show true competition against the Google search engine, which wasn't there before. Lots of companies have tried to challenge Google in the space and just haven't been able to unseat them. Certainly, there's probably some additional factors as to why that is actually an issue, from their advertising network to other components. It all kind of ties in and keeps you in that Google universe. But yeah, Google's strategy from a market product standpoint has been kind of inconsistent, to say the least. Killing off products that seem to be useful, that people seem to like. Other products stick around for a while and then just kind of languish and then get killed off. Shifting strategy to AI now. The article says that they're going to streamline and make it faster, where these products that leverage AI can actually get out the door more quickly. Which certainly has me concerned, because there should be some guardrails around AI. We should have some good understanding of what it is, what it's doing, and we shouldn't just be throwing things against the wall to see what sticks. So hopefully Google figures that out and is able to do so in a way that's responsible.
I wonder how many AI researchers they just laid off and are scrambling to rehire right now. All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be back in a few moments with part 2 of this week's Enterprise Security Weekly News.